Human trafficking and forced labor have been on front page news worldwide, but what is it? Human trafficking is defined as an illegal movement of people typically for the purpose of forced labor, which is any work or service that people force to do against their will. For example, workers growing crops in plantation with no salary. Since ancient times, slave labor was popular and forced labor was very common. The pyramids in Egypt were built using slaves. Moses and the Israelites escaped slavery during biblical times. During this time, forced labor was used mainly for building monuments and for public works projects. During the 1400s to 1700s, forced labor was becoming more economical around the world. Europeans used slaves to grow crops as well as for public work projects. Some of the countries that were doing this were Spain, Portugal, Holland, France, Sweden, and Denmark, especially in their territories in the Americas and Africa. In the late 1800s, we used countries that claimed forced labor illegal and regarding it as frowned upon. In 1904, the movement of forced labor was affecting everyone, especially women and girls still. In 1927, everyone was protected legally with League of Nations founded in World War I. But there was still forced labor behind the scenes of big companies in faraway third world countries and even more discreetly under our very noses. In 1932, during World War II, Japan had a huge system for women across Asia who were forced to work in prostitution, one of the largest we have seen since the open slave trade of the 1800s. KPRC Channel 2 says, Houston's the number one among U.S. cities in human trafficking. 127 countries are affected with this problem, and their citizens are suffering. Just to get an idea of the country with high number of human trafficking victims, highest in India with 14.3 million, China with 3.2 million, Pakistan with 2.1 million, Uzbekistan with 1.2 million, Russia with 1 million, Nigeria with 834,200, Congo with 762,900, Indonesia 714,000, Bangladesh with 680,900, and Thailand with 475,300. Usually immigrants, women, and girls are the most affected between ages 14 to 16 years old, sometimes younger. In the novel by Patricia McCormick is about a girl from Nepal who was promised to have an amazing job and earn a lot of money for her family. At the end, she realized she is getting sold to different people each time, barely getting any money for her family. The lady who captured the girl kept reminding her how much she owed her for shelter and food she had given her. This is an example of human trafficking. Another story is of a 15-year-old boy named Hai, whose father died tragically. Strangers promised him great fortune and happy life. The people kept moving Hai to different places, and they said that he owed them money for all the traveling they did. Years passed. Hai never paid his debt, but the police came and saved him. Confused, the police put him in jail for 24 years before departing Hai to his home country. In 1956, the Immoral Traffic Act in India tried to control human trafficking, but failed miserably. In 1995, United Nations held the Fourth World Conference to talk about trafficking. Also, the huge impact to women and everyone with mental and physical problems. Law enforcement and institutions to help the victims. Now there's a lot of human trafficking happening worldwide. In 2011, President Obama declared Human Trafficking Awareness Day, January 11th. Also, January is the Awareness Month. Human trafficking is started by kidnappers who take children against their parents' will, but also by promising a better life and money for their parents. Do families willingly send their children off? Also, forced labor is not as big at times because companies outsource jobs in the third world countries, pay very little for work, which is technically not, although very close to slave labor. The kidnappers who do this are interested in making money for themselves. This is a reason for nearly all human trafficking, as the victims are used to work to generate revenue while receiving almost none of their earnings back and living in extremely bad conditions. This is a global crisis. No one should be obligated to do something they don't want to do, and much less be made to work under conditions they do not agree to. Each day, more people suffering because they have less freedom to speak out or change their life. People should not have price tag and be sold like common property. Human trafficking causes their victims physical and mental damage each day. At times when they outlive their use, they are tortured until they obey or are killed. There are people working hard for little pay or no pay all around the world. Stop by making more people aware. Obama, the United Nations, and European nations are trying to make people realize it is bad. Groups and the government trying to make companies accountable for human trafficking by having better laws and solve free supply chains. Call this number above the screen to report any type of human trafficking. One more thing, there is shelter homes for the victims.